deterministic universe in which there is no such thing as freedom and no moral responsibility. As a result, he wants to guard against the dangers, as he calls them, of materialism. And the intrusion of the idea of soul substance, of course, is a denial of any reductionism of a materialist sort. But what happens is that introducing soul substance introduces a mind-body problem. What is the relationship between the mind substance and the body substance? Now, keep in mind, that's that awful pun again, keep in mind that neither mind nor body are, according to Kant, known as substance. So the mind-body problem, in the sense of the relationship between two substances, is a pseudo-problem. But it's a pseudo-problem created by the intrusion of the concept substance. And you'll find there's one place in which he observes there are three kinds of answer to that problem. There is the answer that there is some kind of causal connection. Physical causation is involved. That sounds like Descartes, you see. But obviously that's going to introduce another a priori concept, the concept of causation. The alternative is to say that there is some pre-established harmony between the two. That's Leibniz. And the third alternative is to say that there is supernatural assistance. And that, of course, is the occasionalism, which says that it's God who produces the corresponding effects. But that, again, would be speaking about something of which we do not know. So the fact that we hypostasize, to hypostasize is to treat it as a substance. Hypostasis, the Greek word for substratum, substance. It's the term used in the Trinitarian language of the early church. Three hypostases in one ousia, okay, came out as three persons in one essence. But to hypostasize is to treat as a substance, as something with enduring entity. And to hypostasize mind and body, as we do, is logically a paralogism. It goes beyond what logic allows. Now, that in fact is only one of the paralogisms involved in rational psychology. And it's the one which were given in the anthology. But there are three others as well, and if you look at page 418, you can see very quickly what the others are, and if you want, you can get a complete copy of the Critique of Pure Reason from the library and read what he says about all the others. But they follow very naturally from the first. It's not just that the soul is substance, that's within the categories of relation. But number two, as regards quality, the categories of quality, it is simple. That is to say, it is what it is, indivisibly. Indivisibly. And if you go back to the categories as listed on 389, the categories of quality, a relation, negation, limitation, okay, from the logical qualities, affirmative propositions, negative propositions, indefinite propositions. So this, to say that it is simply what it is to ascribe reality you see? So that is another a priori concept introduced. Number 3, he says, has to do with different times in which it exists, numerically identical in its unity. This seems to be category of quantity. Quantity, it has its own singular identity through time. That's another a priori concept. And then number 4, in relation to possible objects of space, that's implied in the mind-body problem. In relation to possible objects of space, possibility and necessity, that's yet another category. So he runs through the 4 kinds of categories: quantity, quality, relation, modality, and shows how in rational psychology all 4 of those kinds of categories are involved. And so what you really have in that branch of metaphysics is really an imaginative construct made up out of those a priori concepts, imposed on our actual experience, reflective introspection. Now, does that come through clearly? Comments? Questions? You're staring. You mean it's that easy? Yeah, that in effect is it. You see. His point is that these a priori categories are categories of understanding, they're not categories of reality. Because they're not categories of reality, they crunch the empirical input into unreal ways of thinking. And as a result, not only the cogito ergo sum, what am I, res cogitans, not only is that going beyond logic, but so is the claim that I as a thinking thing stand in relationship to extended things, bodies. That doesn't apply either. I as a thinking thing extend back through time and so forth. That doesn't apply either. I as a thinking thing can possibly extend on into the future. That doesn't apply either. I'll cover up these cables before I trip over them. That would be another paralogism. Okay. Anything then on the rational psychology? Sound straightforward? I said Kant should have said it much more briefly. Can be done. Okay. Keep in mind that he's not denying the existence of soul substance. He's not denying the existence of soul substance. He's saying you don't have a valid argument. Maybe all sorts of bad arguments for good causes. He's not denying it. He's not affirming it either. When it comes to talking about God, we'll see that he affirms the existence of God even though he says you don't have a good argument. And in regards to soul, he seems to say you don't have a good argument, but he's not prepared to affirm it at this juncture at least. Okay, rational cosmology involving these conflicting truths. And here, if you would, turn to, let's see, page 428, 429 in there, 428, 429. His point here is that the terms soul and world should both be regarded not as representations of reality, but as what he calls regulative concepts, in the sense that they regulate what we then say. Soul is regulative in that it keeps us from materialism. World also is a regulative concept. It regulates the way in which we synthesize our thinking about physical things. The way in which we project our experience. Now, on 429, you see him doing much the same thing in this case as he did with psychology. Here you have, again, the identification of 4 areas of cosmology, as he puts it just above the breakdown, according to the 4 titles of the categories: quantity, quality, relation, and modality. So you notice that the first one, dealing with absolute completeness of composition of the whole, the second dealing with division, infinitely or finitely divisible. The first is whether the cosmos is finitely or infinitely extended in time and space. So the first has to do with that infinite extension, space and time. The second with finite or infinite divisibility, chop-up-ability. The third having to do with relationship, the origination. And the fourth having to do with modality, the complete dependence, contingency, or necessity. So each of the areas of categories is again involved. Then he gets to taking up each of these in its turn. And on page 433, you can see the structure of his thinking. The thesis is that the world has a beginning in time and is limited also with regards to space. It's finite in duration temporally and in extension spatially. The antithesis is the opposite. The world has no beginning, no limits, but is infinite in regards to both time and space. And he is going to show. Now, his procedure is what in logic we call a reductio ad absurdum. Where you may recall, you should, I hope, recall from your logic course, and if you haven't taken a logic course, you are impoverished.